The music was loud, the laughter louder, and the smoky haze in the bar seemed thick enough to chew on. In the middle of the chaos sat Claire, quiet as a shadow among wolves. She didn't belong in places like this. Not really. With her plain jeans, worn-out sneakers, and simple cotton shirt, she looked more like a librarian than someone who'd willingly walk into a biker bar on the edge of town. Yet here she was, nursing a soda instead of a beer, keeping to herself in the corner booth like a ghost everyone ignored. But that night, ignoring her wasn't on the menu. It started when a group of bikers, loud, drunk, and careless, stumbled in. The leader, a barrel-chested man with arms covered in tattoos and eyes dark as tar, spotted Claire almost instantly. Maybe it was because she didn't fit the scene. Maybe it was because she wasn't drinking. Or maybe it was just because cruelty has a way of seeking out quiet souls to torment. Whatever the reason, he swaggered over, smirking. "What's a little mouse like you doing here?" he asked, his voice a booming challenge. His friends snickered behind him. Claire raised her eyes briefly but said nothing. Just a sip of soda. Just a quiet breath. The biker didn't like that. He reached out suddenly, his massive hand gripping her shirt collar. With one rough tug, the fabric ripped down the seam, exposing the skin of her shoulder. The bar went dead silent, every laugh and clinking glass cut short. Not because of the violence. This crowd was no stranger to fights, but because of what lay in her skin. It wasn't just a tattoo. It was the proud, bold emblem of the United States Marine Corps. The eagle, globe, and anchor etched in dark ink, standing out like a scar of fire. The biker froze. His friend stared. Even the bartender stopped mid-wipe, rag hanging limp in his hand. For a moment, Claire could hear her own breath over the pounding music that suddenly felt 1,000 miles away. She stood slowly, pulling her torn shirt back over her shoulder, though she made no move to hide the tattoo. Her eyes, once quiet and downcast, now held a sharpness forged from years of training, years of discipline, years of surviving things far worse than a drunken bully in a bar. "You picked the wrong woman," she said softly, but every word cut like steel. The biker's smirk faltered. The silence stretched thick and uncomfortable. Then one of his friends, an older man with a gray beard, shifted uneasily. "Back off, Rick. She's a Marine." Rick laughed, but it was hollow, forced. So what? "A tattoo. Don't scare me." But Claire didn't raise her voice. She didn't even move toward him. She simply stepped closer, her gaze steady, unflinching, and in that steady calm was something Rick wasn't used to. Authority. Not the loud, boastful kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind that only comes from people who have stood at the edge of death and walked away. "You think you're tough?" she asked. "I've carried brothers through the desert under fire. I've watched people bleed out in my arms and still kept moving. You don't scare me." Her words weren't for him alone. They carried across the bar into every ear, silencing even the drunks in the corner. There was no bravado, no bluff, just truth. Raw and undeniable. Rick shifted his weight, trying to hold on to his swagger, but the room was no longer his. It belonged to her. The bartender finally broke the silence. "Rick, let her be. You don't want this." For a second, Claire thought Rick might still push it. His pride was on the line, and men like him didn't back down easily. But then he caught the eyes of his own crew. None of them looked eager to back him up. The gray-bearded one muttered, "Marine Corps, she's earned her place." Rick's face twisted, part anger, part embarrassment. But he released her shirt, stepping back with a snarl. "This ain't over," he spat. Claire tilted her head, calm as ever. "It already is." He stormed out, his crew following like dogs unsure of their master. The bar slowly returned to life, but it wasn't the same. The laughter was softer, the glances at Claire longer, more respectful. People nodded toward her, some in silent thanks, others in awe. But Claire didn't stay to bask in it. She picked up her soda, drained the last of it, and set the glass down. Then, with her torn shirt hanging loose, she headed for the door. Outside, the night air was cooler, calmer. She leaned against her truck for a moment, staring at the stars overhead. The tattoo wasn't just ink. It was memory. It was loss. It was her best friend, Lisa, who never made it back from that last deployment. It was the faces of young Marines who looked to her for guidance when the world around them burned. It was the weight of everything she had survived and everything she carried still. She didn't wear it to show off. She wore it so she wouldn't forget. That night, though, something shifted. She had walked into that bar just a quiet woman, hoping to be invisible. But she walked out as a reminder both to herself and to everyone who had seen that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it sits alone in a corner. And sometimes when pushed, it stands taller than anyone expects. Word of what happened spread quickly. Small towns thrived on stories. And soon enough, people whispered about the woman who froze an entire biker bar with nothing more than a tattoo and a few calm words. But Claire didn't care about the whispers. She wasn't interested in fame or respect. She only cared about living quietly, honoring the memory of those who couldn't. Still, in her heart, there was a warmth she hadn't felt in years. A reminder that she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was still capable of standing up, of fighting back when it mattered. And maybe, just maybe, that meant she was ready to start living again. The biker might never admit it, but in that bar, in that frozen silence, Claire had shown every single one of them what real strength looked like. And it had nothing to do with muscles, tattoos, or bravado. It was the strength to endure, the strength to rise, the strength to carry others when they couldn't carry themselves, the strength of a Marine. And for the first time in a long while, Claire drove home with her head high, not because of the fear she'd struck into others, but because she had remembered her own worth. The simple woman with the quiet eyes was far more than she appeared. And anyone foolish enough to doubt her would learn the same lesson Rick did. Some tattoos aren't just ink. They're battle scars.